Here we go. So come on in. We just opened the door for the webinar to get smarter about Amazon sales.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, we got Aaron, we got front row seats, webinars. This is going to be good. I mean, I'm a growth CFO, so the kind of expertise that Kira has is just different than, how to sell online platforms. I mean, I am ready to pick up a few things from you.
Yeah, we were just joking before we got started that I'm going to know if you're paying attention or not because you're the one that's advancing my slides.
If I even pause, call me out on it. Say, Kirk, get it.
Stop looking at your phone.
So it can't be that important, right? So, hey, Julie, it's good to see you. I'm trying to look to see if I work with some of the folks here in the room. So far, a new group, which is fantastic. Yeah, Larry, come on up. I'm gonna give it another minute, just 1 minute after the hour, then we're gonna get going.
Yeah, we've got a lot to cover off today. Big topic.
Yeah, and we're gonna send, Kira's gonna send out the slide and a link to the recording post-webinar. We'll make sure people know that as we get into it. Very good. Yeah, Tao, Timothy, good to see you. And hey, as you come in, if you can go to the chat box and put in the city that you're in, that would help us know who's in the room. And there just might be some relevant examples that we can really pinpoint in your neighborhood, kind of what's going on, even though Amazon certainly has a global capability. Yeah, New York, Austin, Texas.
Great.
Yeah, my parents live in Georgetown, Texas, Round Rock, just north of Austin. So it's good to, Baton Rouge, nice. London, yeah,
Nice.
we're impacting the world.
All over.
Yeah, Minneapolis, fantastic.
Yeah.
Where is Poughkeepsie, John?
Poughkeepsie. That's New York State.
Yeah, John's a partner in the business. I didn't know. I didn't know.
Oh dear, that's funny.
Yeah, I was figuring New York, Brazil, very good. Dallas, fantastic. We had a good audience here. So we're right at time. Kira, you ready to get going?
I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm gonna launch. Okay. So for the folks who don't know me, my name is Kirk. I'm the CEO of Foresight CFO. In addition, I teach financial management to grad students at Georgetown University. So this is part of the mission. Military family, 2 kids at West Point, and 1 graduated. He's at Fort Sill, Oklahoma now, shooting the big cannons. So service, driving results is a big part of what we do. And I love this topic because invariably when we're working with CEOs about how to grow their business with confidence and clarity, especially now, right, where it's really challenging, how do we drive the financial impacts that they need? Invariably, the top line, sales, almost always comes up, right? So if we can get the top line going in the right direction, then it's much easier to get that bottom line to a healthy place where your clients are thriving. So, Kira, could you introduce yourself and let folks know who you are and why we're doing this today?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Kiri Masters. I'm the founder of a company called Bobsled Marketing. We are a digital marketplace agency that helps retail brands to sell on Amazon, Walmart, and soon Instacart as well. So we've been helping branded manufacturers primarily for the last 5 years to be smarter about these selling channels, which are very opaque and complicated. And so part of, just like Kirk goes and does all this great work in the community around financial education, we also spend a lot of time at Bobsled and myself personally educating marketers, sales people, and company leadership in the retail space about how they can engage with online marketplaces like Amazon. So I contribute to Forbes Retail. I've written a couple of books about Amazon. I host a podcast, and just leverage all of the great work that we're doing at Bobsled for 70 odd brand manufacturers that we work with on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And then we got some great folks in the room. Even Russell's here, who's part of that top line sales solution, expert in prospecting. So I'm really glad that, you know, end of summer into the fall, we're doing this together. You want to lay out the agenda, Kira?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So today we're going to be speaking about CPG and grocery brands in the age of Amazon and online marketplaces. So we can't get into this topic without talking about how COVID has changed grocery shopping behaviors. And why we're all here in this room is to learn how to be more relevant to shoppers as their behaviors have changed. People haven't been able to go to stores, and what does that mean for the future? We're going to be talking about the various grocery channels that are going to be most meaningful to brands based on shopping frequency, and also for brands, what are the priorities that you're executing against, how to choose which channels to invest in. Throughout the way, I'm going to be talking about two brands actually that I think have done a really great job of adapting to this new environment. One is called Kettle and Fire, and the other is called Calafia Farms. And then speaking through at a high level, what is our growth playbook at Bobsled that we work with most of our clients on who are brand manufacturers selling on Amazon? What are those core components that we either run with for our clients, or they're working through internally? We're providing an advisory perspective on that. So we're going to talk through what that framework looks like.
Very good. And tomorrow you're going to send out a link to this recording as well as a download for the LinkedIn. Plus, for those folks who stay with us to the very end, you got some white paper. So this is going to be good.
Yep.
All right. All right. So to kick things off, let's get even a better sense of who's in the room. So I'm going to launch 2 poll questions, and your response to these questions, completely anonymous, but we will share statistically the numbers so that everybody knows who's here. The first question is, what is your top line revenue number? And we're looking to get at least a 70% response. We got a good number of people here. So if 70% of you, if we know what's going on, we can kind of guide what might be a better fit for you. And the second question is, this year, and this year's almost over, right? With COVID, do you expect your revenue to increase, decrease, or stay about the same? The economy is decreasing. That a lot of times it's almost, there's an inverse response that the folks coming to webinars are the ones who are taking action, and they're actually growing their revenue, which is wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I think in this particular category as well, there can be a shift from one channel to another. So what we've seen anecdotally across our grocery clients is their sales are potentially increasing over the year because people are eating out less in restaurants and they're eating in home more frequently. But then the mix of sales is shifting from brick and mortar to online. So I wouldn't be surprised to see if most people on this call are expecting to increase.
Very cool. So we're at 55%. If a few more people respond, we can get closer to 70. I don't think we're gonna make it. I'll keep it open for a few more seconds, and we're gonna move on. Take some action here. Okay. So I'm gonna end the poll, and I will share results here. So this is always interesting. There's about 30, almost 40% are doing 0 to 5, and there's almost there's one company doing that 5 to 10, and the rest are doing 10 million or more. Right? That's a good good throughput there. And this, you nailed it. I mean, there's 70% expect business to increase. So we're going to figure out how to do even more of that, right? With Amazon, decrease 4%. Let's see if we can figure out how to get to a healthy place, and the rest are about the same. That's 12% decrease. So you understand the lineup, Kara? What we've got to do here today?
Yep, let's do it. Let's jump in.
All right, game time. Let's go.
All right. So Yeah, I want to talk about, just share a story briefly about what I had titled Soup Wars during the pandemic. So back in February this year, a small startup grocery brand called Kettle and Fire was doing its thing during the winter shopping season. So Kettle and Fire, if you don't know that brand, is a boutique brand that sells healthy packaged soups and bone broths. And so their products are, many of them are keto friendly, grass fed, and tick all the healthy food boxes of this day and age, being keto and paleo, and really on trend with a lot of emerging buying habits. It's a small company, just a few people, and they were growing modestly among the health food crowd, taking advantage of those dietary trends. But cutting through on Amazon, which is where half of product searches occur these days, was always a struggle, because up until March of this year, Campbell's Soup owned the top sponsored and organic placements on Amazon search results. And Campbell's, as you can imagine, was a formidable competitor. Huge budgets for advertising, a wholesale relationship with Amazon that gave them access to unique merchandising options and data. And in addition to the fact that Campbell's and other big soup companies were already very well known by consumers for decades. So Kettle and Fire was doing their very best to cut through to shoppers, but they're a small company, not one with millions of dollars to spend on advertising just on Amazon. Were they forever destined to be just a minor nuisance to big soup? Well, as we know, COVID-19 hit, and with stay-at-home orders, economic uncertainty, and a focus for many consumers on health and comfort created the perfect storm for Kettle and Fire to take advantage of. So what happened was Campbell's and other major soup competitors ran out of stock due to stock up demand. The digital shelves were picked dry. Soup companies struggled to restock. There was massive supply chain disruption around that time. And in some cases, especially the really large food manufacturers, are more beholden to their brick and mortar customers than they are to restocking online. So we just ran out of stock particularly on Amazon during that period. As a result, the ad campaigns for those big brands stopped. That's just an automatic thing that happens. You run out of stock, your ad campaigns stop. And what Kettle and Fire does is recognize this is the opportunity of a lifetime, and they shift all their media spend to take advantage of what is now, because of less competition, very low advertising costs and high shopper interest. And so suddenly, Kettle and Fire now captures the majority of share of voice, the real estate on Amazon.com for most of the month of March. And so the Kettle and Fire team, this underdog in the soup category, is ecstatic. The digital marketing leader of the company said that Kettle and Fire is ahead of projections by at least 5 years. And it doesn't seem to be a flash in the pan. I actually just ran this search last week. If you can advance the slide, Kirk, that was a search for soup, so pre-pandemic. Mm-hmm. And what we're just repeating the search for soup on Amazon now, which is a very competitive term, we can still see the Kettle and Fire is dominating the top of search, which is where most transactions occur on Amazon. So what a great David versus Goliath story. And you could say that Kettle and Fire has benefited from a global pandemic that they couldn't have planned for, no one else could have, that it was something that, hindsight is 2020. Of course, a healthy soup company is going to do well during a pandemic. But there is still some real lessons to take away here, which are applicable to all CPG and grocery brands, regardless of size, whether you're a scale up or a startup or a scaled brand, which is around being successful on online marketplaces and taking advantage of an opportunity when you see one. because what Kettle and Fire understood intimately was the dynamics of Amazon and online marketplaces. And so when this opportunity presented itself, they were poised to take advantage of the situation. So in this, over the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to cover some of those same concepts that Kettle and Fire used to their advantage this year. And as we're going along, please put some questions in. Kirk will interrupt me and tell me what's up. So please pop your questions in the chat if you've got something to ask.
Yep, I'll definitely bring it to the forefront so we can discuss it as a group. Yep. You ready for the next slide there?
So Chris is saying that he drinks Kettle and Fire bone broth every day. I'm sure Chris is one of those companies where they're going to be growing this year. So all this to say, well, to begin with, the shopper journey has changed, and I want to show you what that looked like before.
Mm-hmm.
So traditional retail shopper journey looked something like a big brand will spend money on traditional media advertising, press, and then there's a shopper marketing component, which is, you know, where is your product placed in the store, product packaging, what are you doing with shopper marketing, promotions, things like that. And then the customer will take the product to the checkout, purchase it, drive home, and your means of retaining them is, you know, through more traditional media, maybe coupons, things like that. But today, you can have a look at what that journey looks like today. It is a lot more complicated.
It is complicated. You can see the vision.
Well, where do we get ideas for new recipes and food products to buy, CPG products to buy? We've got social media influencers, we've still got traditional media in the mix there. It can still be very effective, not discounting that channel, but we've got all these digital channels as well. We've got search engine optimization, paid search, whether that's on marketplaces or elsewhere. We've got all of these sort of content of opportunities through retailers, on your own site, on marketplaces, product videos, things like that. And then, I mean, just looking at the purchase and fulfillment part of the life cycle, there are so many different ways that people can pay for and physically receive products these days. There's in-store pickup, there's having products shipped to your door. There are intermediaries now like Instacart and Shipped, where you're actually buying something from a retailer, but the physical delivery of your product is handled by a completely separate third party. And then we've got all of these different ways to retain customers, which all of these things have different levels of effectiveness, different costs associated with them. So we're living in a very different time in terms of complexity. Next slide. So it is vastly more complex, this world that we're in, but I also believe that at the same time as it's more complex, that commerce has been democratized. So
what does that mean, Kiri?
What it means is, actually, if you could advance a couple more slides,
Mm-hmm.
that this previously, only big brands had the budget to spend big on media campaigns and acquire new customers. But today, all of those marketing opportunities, maybe with the exception of big mass media campaigns, are accessible to even the smallest brand. So you can start an advertising campaign for your products on Amazon tomorrow with $1. You can't run a campaign on TV with $1. So it's still, it means that generally speaking, a small startup brand has the same opportunities to the same marketing opportunities and the same distribution opportunities as a big brand. And so that's great for the startups out there, the smaller companies that might be tuning in. And then it's also a warning sign to large companies that might have become a little complacent, move a little bit slower with making decisions, might have put off the decision to invest in digital for a long time because previously e-commerce was such a small percentage of a brand's overall sales. And, as we saw with the Campbell soup scenario, it took a little competitor who saw a good opportunity and took advantage of it to actually, take and retain significant market share from them.
Okay. You want the next slide here?
Yes, please. So this is one of the first decision points to make as a brand, which is choosing where to play. We have a lot of options as it pertains to retailers and fulfillment companies. And this study is actually quite recent, by Cowan and Company, mid-August of this year. And they asked shoppers not for their sort of planned purchase activity, which we're all humans, we don't know what we're going to be doing next week. But it was actually where people had already purchased in the past 30 days. So you can see that there's a real concentration in Amazon and Walmart.com, and then a long tail after that. And so this is where I get people to think about, where are you going to be spending the bulk of your budget and your time? You want to make sure that you're spending a corresponding amount of budget and time on these top two channels here. And while there's a great case to be made for Instacart, for example, and I will make a great case for Instacart, it is still a smaller platform based on search frequency and recency. So if you could advance on, we'll talk about some of the differences between those top platforms. And so this is going to inform brands around, what operationally, financially, and market-wise makes sense for you to prioritize as a channel. So inventory relationship, this comes down to who actually has title of your inventory. Is that first parties, as in the marketplace is purchasing from you, or third party where you're the brand and you are the merchant selling that product? It just happens to be through a marketplace platform. Paid search advertising capabilities. This is a big one, because if you can list your product on a marketplace, but if no one knows that it's there, they may not be searching for it. And you've got no ability to actually target for a generic search term like soup, for example. So that's how Kettle and Fire was able to muscle their way to the top of even organic searches, was to aggressively bid on that search term and win paid placements for that search term. And ultimately that translated to an organic placement as well. So the maturity of paid search advertising is quite an important factor. Amazon, out of this group, is by far and away has the most advanced advertising capabilities. The other one, Walmart, is, I said, expensive for the fact that their pricing auction works a little bit differently. I won't go into all the details. It's a little bit mind-numbing, but typically find it's just more generally expensive to bid on Walmart for the same terms. And then finally, Instacart's the other one to call out here. Anecdotally, brands are finding really good return on investment for Instacart advertising. And then the two final columns here around organic optimization. So what can you do with product content? Can you add things like videos and comparison tables and recipes to a product page to inspire customers and engage them? So again, we've got the most extensive options on Amazon. And then the final column, this is a real factor for a lot of brands, which is how are you able to and expected to fulfill orders to the customer? So for most of these, you're able to fulfill these orders directly from as a merchant, or if you have a first party wholesale relationship with that marketplace, then they will do that for you. With Amazon, if you have a third party merchant relationship with Amazon, then the best practice is actually for Amazon to fulfill those items for you, which is a program called Fulfillment by Amazon, or FBA. And that means that your products will become Prime eligible, which if you've shopped on Amazon, I'm sure everyone on the call has. You always look for that Prime eligible banner. And we see at Bobsled between a 3 and 10 times increase in sales when a brand switches from fulfilling their own products to having Amazon fulfill those, and those products becoming Prime eligible.
Yeah. Hey, Kira, we have a question from Moria, and I'm going to rephrase a little bit, but I'm going to ask, from these different channels, what kind of data do you get back from them?
Yeah, there's a lot to get into there. It depends what kind of data, let's see. I mean, you're always going to find out, your order volume, conversion rate, things like that. I'd say with Instacart is the trickiest one to get data from currently, because they're not even a retailer, and their relationship is with the retailer, not with you as the brand. So the only way you can engage with Instacart as a brand is to run ads on Instacart. But even then, you don't know who saw those ads, which retailer they're shopping. And so it is sort of, to a lot of brands who are used to being able to say, this is what I spent, this is how much money I made from that exact search term. Like, we can get extremely granular with Amazon and Walmart, but with Instacart, we don't know which retailer, who saw that ad, but we see a good return on ad spend.
And it kind of seems like, if I just think about the market, I think the average buyer in Amazon is probably different than the average buyer in Walmart from a demographic standpoint. Is that roughly accurate, or am I off base there?
I think so. I think that I'm not sure where to attribute this to, but I think that there's still a lot of overlap between those two customer types. And I see another question here is around Walmart Plus, which is Walmart's new membership program that's designed, well, not designed to compete with Prime, but that's the interpretation everyone seems to have. Look, more than half of US households have Prime membership.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And I mean, I don't know of any other company or even a utility that has that level of cut through into US households. So
unbelievable.
It's not going to be hard to find a good crossover in that Venn diagram of Amazon shoppers and Walmart shoppers, because half of US households are Prime shoppers. So in terms of how, I think that the Walmart Plus offering, when it first came out, which was 2 weeks ago, is not super compelling from my seat. It doesn't seem to have a hugely differentiated offering to Amazon. There is a fuel discount, but that is not a super high priority for a lot of consumers these days. Mm-hmm. And there's still some weird terms, like, can you just spend over $35 for an order to ship free? So I don't think that they have the full offering out there that's going to enable them to properly compete with Prime.
Okay. So hey, let's do 2 more questions and we'll move on so we can get to the full story here. So there's a question that came up twice about, does Amazon have frozen fulfillment currently?
Yes. So Amazon has a cold chain fulfillment through its Fresh program. And so Amazon Fresh is a sort of sub program within Prime, where if you're a Prime member, you get access to Fresh as well. It used to be a separate membership you needed to take out. but Amazon Fresh is a grocery delivery service like Instacart or like Peapod. And so it's specifically from Amazon's cold chain fulfillment network. So Fresh doesn't actually deliver all over the US like regular.com does. It only delivers to certain cities. It delivers to a lot of US cities now. And also it's active in the UK. So to have your brand sold through Fresh, that's actually a closed program where you need to essentially be invited to it by Amazon. They're only going to stock, because it's a first party relationship. They're only going to stock products that they can see demand for through their system.
Okay, very good. And there's 3 more questions. We'll come back to those in a moment. You ready to advance to the next slide?
Yep.
Okay. So we'll come back to the open questions.
So this is recapping, on the Whole Foods, Prime Pantry, Prime Now, and Fresh. This is a major challenge with Amazon right now. I'm just looking at the 3rd column on this slide since we're just talking about it. It's very confusing both to shoppers and to brands, the difference between Prime Pantry, Prime Now, Fresh, and .com, which are all different programs that have different fulfillment processes attached to them. And they're going to need to clean that up because it's not a super slick experience for shoppers. And then also as a brand, there's some marketing capabilities that don't translate from one program to the other. So I believe that Amazon will ultimately consolidate some of those programs together, which would be a big win both for customers and for brands who are trying to carve up their marketing budget into 3 different programs in some cases. Walmart's been on a tear this year, launching features to engage with brands and with shoppers. So as we just talked about, Walmart Plus, that's a big bid to get regular purchases from shoppers, and particularly with grocery shoppers as well, get some ongoing behavior from Walmart customers there. And they've also rolled out a lot of features for brands and merchants. So they announced a big partnership with Shopify a couple of months ago. They launched their own fulfillment service that's similar to Amazon's. It's much, much more limited than Amazon's, but it was launched. And they've also realigned their in-person and online buying teams. So they're making huge strides in e-commerce and digital grocery, but it's still taking them a little while to catch up. And then the final, I'm sort of working from right to left. Sorry if I'm confusing anyone. I'm just going in order of what the questions were. And then finally, international markets. So this is a question that I get a lot. What about Canada? What about the UK? Amazon's very, does a lot of marketing to brands to show them, hey, you've got these global opportunities. You can set up you can start selling into Mexico and you can do it. It's so easy. But, there is a lot more to it than just listing products on Amazon in those markets. You need to physically get your inventory there somehow. And if you're in the CPG space, you're selling food products or beauty products, then each of those countries obviously have their own requirements, have their own safety protocols and compliance. You need to physically get inventory there. You need to consider the tax consequences of setting up and selling in a new country. So what we typically see is this makes sense more so for scaled brands and companies where an additional 5 or 10% in sales is going to be attractive enough to offset all of those costs of launching in a new market. All right, so let's talk about the second case study that I had for today. Keep the questions coming as well. But this is another brand that I've come to know pretty well, called Calafia Farms. They're a plant-based milk company who, like Kettle and Fire, saw great success during the pandemic, because people were shopping for health foods, but also specifically for boxed milk and shelf stable milk, and stocking up their pantries to be prepared. So having, I'll get into going to share a little bit more about what Calafia's sort of how they adapted to COVID, but to give you a sense of, this is one version of what your online digital grocery channel strategy can be. You can see that Calafia, just in the US, they're selling across multiple retailers here. You can imagine that they have this be everywhere strategy. That's their priority, to be where the customer wants to shop them. You can imagine that there's a huge difference in profitability between Costco, a Costco customer, as in shipping wholesale to Costco and Costco selling to customers, versus Calafia.com, where you might be you're shipping boxes of almond milk for less than $30. So there's huge differences in profitability between those channels. Just, I can say that looking from the outside in, not because of any inside information, but this is a big, complex channel, for multiple channels for them to manage, because they also have shelf stable, club SKUs, and cold chain. So how did they navigate that during COVID? And what kind of success factors do they look at on a daily basis? Let's have a look at that. So as I mentioned, to the theme of adaptation and being adaptable, again, in online channels, what Calafia saw was a surge in search activity for the search term boxed milk during the early days of COVID. And this was quite unusual to them, because typically only 10% of their portfolio was non-perishable versus refrigerated milks and products. So this was something that they already were watching, what buying habits were pre-COVID. So they knew, as soon as that search term started to emerge and show some legs and start seeing more volume, they knew that they had to jump onto that opportunity. So they started testing against that search term with their product content, with their advertising terms that they were targeting, and with the keywords that they had throughout all of their marketplace product listings as well. So that quickly led the company to look at availability and make sure that their non-perishable products were in stock wherever the shopper was searching for it. So that was, to be in stock with their e-commerce retail partners at the time when everyone was having operational issues, and also, hold that commitment that they have to their brick and mortar retail partners at the same time. So where they were able to remain very consistent was with their direct-to-consumer channel, Calafia.com, which is where they were able to control that supply chain the most. So they were able to point people back from away from the channels where there wasn't any inventory and towards the direct-to-consumer channel. So they were able to sort of elevate their brand to be more reliable during the pandemic, and able to build loyalty during a time when a lot of other brands were out of stock, or maybe pointing customers to channels that had availability issues.
Yeah.
Chris says I drink that too. You're a big big health food junkie, Chris. So this leads us to the Amazon Playbook, and this is something that we use at Bobsled for all of our clients. In some cases, our clients have in-house teams that handle one or several of these pillars, but the important thing is that that a brand is covering off all of these four bases somehow, and at the best, at the highest level possible. So let's get into, to explain the concept a little bit more. I think of particularly Amazon like a iceberg. There are the visible aspects of it. You see the ads, you see the product title and the images and the content. But there is so much going on below the surface of the water that is not visible, which is going to drive everything up the top. So as we've talked about a little bit with some of those examples, availability. You can have the best ad campaigns and the most beautiful product pages in the world, but if you have run out of stock because you didn't forecast correctly, or because Amazon has taken issue with something on your product listing and has suspended your product for some reason, then you're not going to be selling anything and your product's not even going to show up in search results. So all of these unsexy operational factors that we'll talk about a little bit really come into play with your Amazon channel, regardless of whether they're actually visible to shoppers or not. So we're going to dive into, let's talk about first the top of the iceberg. And here are a couple of examples in the category of what this can look like. So paid search and programmatic advertising, these are ad units that are purchasable on Amazon. At the top of the page, on product pages, there's lots of different types of placements in Amazon search. And this is the important part, because none of us go to Amazon. Oh, well, I think it might be changing, but rarely do we go to Amazon just because we've got a spare 5 minutes and we feel like getting some retail therapy. We go to Amazon because we're searching, I need a new stapler. I need I need to reorder that drink that I like. You go to Amazon with a specific need or problem or something that you want to reorder. It's all search driven. There's very little sort of discovery that's happening through browsing activity. So search on Amazon is really important. Promotions have become really interesting in the last few years as well. So we can have coupons, we can have subscribe and save, which is particularly of interest to CPG brands that are replenished. And we have really interesting content opportunities. This one shows Just Water, who have really great comparison tables here. We can do videos, we can do spin images, we can show more of the nutritional panel. So lots of great merchandising options available on Amazon, and the list keeps growing. And then, to dive into advertising just a little bit more, there's a couple of different advertising channels on Amazon. We've got the search advertising, different types of strategies that we can use here. Competitor conquesting, this would be kettle and fire, bidding on the search term Campbell's Big Red Soup, like going after a specific competitor product or going after their brand name and trying to dominate search for that particular search term. Retargeting is newer to Amazon. It's taken a little bit longer than people thought to actually deploy, but we can retarget customers who've purchased before. And then at the top of the funnel, if you will, at the awareness stage, there's some interesting, more traditional media buys that we can do either on Amazon or off Amazon using Amazon's shopper data. So for me, Amazon has these profiles built of shoppers that you can't access through any other advertising platform. So Facebook might know what I'm interested in. They might have seen I've got some pretty unusual shopping habits through ads I see on Instagram. So they might have built up an understanding of like what my interest might be. And Google has a different idea of who I am based on searches that I've done on Google for tennis club or, you know, things that I'm interested in as well, places I've been. But Amazon knows what we have researched and what we have bought, how frequently we bought it, what kind of products we bought for other people in our household. So they will know, you know, I have a toddler, I have a cat, I like health food, you know, like they have this idea of what our shopping habits have been. And that creates super rich targeting opportunities for brands, because we can even search, this is a new feature that they rolled out last week. We can run ads to shoppers who have recently watched videos on Prime Video by a specific director.
Yeah, they're getting all into your business now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is, you know, this is a really interesting channel to target people based on actual purchase history, research history, people who have researched competitors' products and bought them or not bought them.
Yeah. Hey, Kiri, so just kind of address one of the questions here. What's coming to mind, I'm going to offer a growth CFO perspective about using the numbers. There's questions about how do you make sure, what tools you use to make sure you're getting results that you expect. So here's the best practice from a growth CFO standpoint is if you're doing something new, forecast what you expect either on a weekly or month-to-month basis going forward, you know, at least 3 months, maybe 6, 9, or 12, depending on what you're looking at. Figure out how much money you're putting in and when you expect to get something back. Then develop weekly key performance indicators. Are you over or under what you expected in those key steps of your conversion cycle, so that you can act on it, you know, proactively before the week is over, before the month is over, and then get your monthly financials for that project, for that investment. Get the financials with the variance. Are you over or under what you expect at that point in time? And that will do a lot. Using the numbers will do a lot to help, you know, for the R&D things that you're doing that are working, put more fuel into it. For the things that aren't working, you know, try something else or adjust, right? So that by having the numbers, the fog lifts, and you can work with people like Kara to figure out what to do more of. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, and I just realized we're totally out of time, Kirk. And I didn't have my eye on the clock. So how quickly should we wrap things up
I would
here?
think we could run another to 55 minutes if people can hang in with us. As long as we're done before the hour, we fulfilled our promise, right?
Okay. All right. So brand protection and operational excellence. These are everything that underpins particularly Amazon, but all of these marketplaces, the strategy here. So this is what's going to, you know, unhinge everything that you're doing right with advertising and, you know, targeting people based on what movies they watched recently and all that really fun stuff. Here's all the operational things that need to happen day in, day out to make sure that your products are available to buy on Amazon. People are buying the you know, genuine products. So on Amazon, other people are allowed to sell your products. That's just how it works. You want to be taking point on who's selling your products. Are there counterfeit issues here? You know, particularly in like beauty, there can be serious issues if counterfeits are in the system. So that brand protection piece is super important. And then operational excellence. This is all about in-stock and product availability. How are you forecasting, as Kirk mentioned? Looking at what Amazon is charging you, whether you've got a first party or third party relationship with them. There's, you know, usually thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars left on the table with incorrect chargebacks and fees that you need to know what you're doing to be able to look through that and dispute those. Product compliance, line item profitability, customer service. These are all things that will undo the best Amazon channels if they're not managed correctly. I think that there was actually a question on this: in-source or outsourced, or it was, what type of capabilities should I have inside my company to work on e-commerce? This sort of speaks to that a little bit. There is no one answer to whether your team should be inside or outside. I would say general observation I see is that a company is generally stronger on the marketing side or on the operations side. One thing that pains me a lot is hearing a brand say, we're just going to hire an ex-Amazon employee to do everything for us. There's no one person who's going to be great at running ads, customer service, inventory forecasting, all of these things. There's no one person who's going to be talented at running all of that for you. You need to pick what you're good at internally if you need to make a trade-off, and look to outsource the rest, or at least get an advisor, advisory capability in from someone like Bobsled, where we work with 70 clients across different categories. We know what we're looking at. All right, so just to zip through here, we talked about what channels to play in based on a few different factors. What are some core success metrics, how different companies look at that, and the importance of those 4 factors in running an Amazon or marketplace channel. All right, so just a little bit about Bobsled before, and we'll pass back over to Kirk. Bobsled Marketing is my company. I founded in 2015. We work with brands across all categories, many in CPG. We work with these brand manufacturers on their Amazon sales channel. Walmart and Instacart is coming soon. And we have still a small company, but we have a direct relationship with Amazon. We do a lot of thought leadership and work out in the retail community to share best practices like we're doing today on this webinar. So I think that was it from my side, Kirk.
Yeah, and just kind of to share that, John Redmond, my partner up in New York, works closely with Kara. We love what they're doing. And if anybody's out there want to either get into these platforms or take the next step, it's worth the conversation, because the right expertise goes a long ways versus hitting stall points. So you got a couple of things to give out. Is that
Yeah, just real quick. So we'll send around the slides and the replay tomorrow to everyone who was on the call and those that weren't able to make it. In the meantime, we've got a couple of white papers on our site. If you go to bobsledmarketing.com/CPG, we've got 2 white papers: Amazon for CPG brands and selling food and beverages on Amazon. We've got 2 guides there. So those are going to be helpful tools in the meantime. So check that out, bobsledmarketing.com/CPG.
Yeah, very good. And just to bring things home, and our role in all of this, if you're looking at, is that, a big thing that a lot of our CEOs care about is winning new customers. That's where this falls, right? And then we already talked about how do you use the numbers, from forecasting, weekly KPI, monthly financial, how do you use the numbers to calibrate and invest more in what's working? So for me, if you want to know more about, learning how to use the 2% CEO habits or profitability, contact me. We'll talk about the whole business all the way through the bottom line. But without a doubt, if you're in this space, if I was a CEO in this space, I would talk to Kira, because nothing can be lost from a 20-minute conversation, right? There might be something that really helps you advance the cause. So encourage you to do that, and look forward to getting your email with Kira with the link to the recording and the slides. So thank you for joining me. I mean, this is get the word out, right? So that we
Seems like you're paying attention, Kirk.
All the way, right? I do my homework and pay attention. So so thank you sincerely. Okay. Hey, we didn't answer all the questions, but yes, the slide deck will be available. And but please, since we didn't get to all the questions, there's a few in the queue there. Please reach out to Kara. She's great to work with. So until next time, everyone be well. Okay. Karen, I will talk with you soon. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.